What's up, world? Welcome back to another episode of Just Grow It, the podcast. I'm your host, Big City Gardener, and today we're talking carrots. This is the Carrot Grow Guide episode. Now, if you've never grown carrots before, let me tell you, you are in for a surprise and for a great time. There's nothing quite as fun as unearthing carrots and yanking them out of the ground. You kind of feel like a kid on Christmas because you don't actually know how big the carrots are. Even if you were to dust some of the dirt off the top to see the size of the shoulders of the carrots, you don't know how long that carrot is until you actually harvest it. Now, I know from personal experience that carrots are also kind of tricky to get to grow properly. But I promise if you follow along with the tips and tricks in this episode, you will have one of your best carrot harvests ever. Now, with that being said, let's get into the episode. First off, when do we plant carrots? Well, just like everything else, that really depends on where you live and what your growing zone is. Carrots do not like extreme weather in either direction. So they do not like extreme hot and they don't like extreme cold. And that's why they do so well in your fall and your spring gardens. If you live somewhere like I live down here in Houston, a place with mild winters, then you're actually able to grow carrots continuously from the fall all the way until the start of the summer. If that's not a good enough reason to get everybody to move to a place with mild winters, then I don't know what else to tell you. But for the most part, carrots are a cool season crop that grow best in fall. That's right, this is something you should be adding to your fall garden. Like other root crops, carrot seeds do not transplant well, so you need to make sure that you are planting them at the ideal time. The ideal time to plant carrots is when the soil temperature is around 70 degrees. See, carrots like the warm temperatures to germinate, but then they like the cool temperatures in order for their roots to grow properly. Now, carrots take between 3 to 4 months from seed to harvest. So, like with everything else in gardening, the key or the trick is to work backwards. So for a summer harvest, we need to be sowing our carrots out in the spring. And for a fall harvest, we need to sow our carrots towards the end of the summer. Now, I know I just said that carrots don't like extreme temperatures. If you're planting your carrot seeds in the summertime, you need to make sure that you keep the soil moist. Once the seeds germinate, you're still going to want to make sure that the soil has consistent moisture. Now that we've talked about when the ideal time is to plant carrots, let's talk about how we prep the soil for our carrots. Like with all root crops, we need to make sure that we remove anything that could damage the roots while they're growing. So prior to fertilizing, prior to sowing our first seed, we need to go through and make sure that there are no rocks, branches, pieces of wood, or anything that could hinder the roots from forming properly. Now, I'm not big on tilling your garden, but if you had a massive farm and you wanted to plant carrots, then I understand why someone would go out and till the entire garden. But as an urban gardener, that is not necessary. All we need to do is to make sure that we work some compost into the top 1 to 2 inches of our soil. In order to grow great carrots, we need to make sure that we have the right soil consistency. Carrots grow best in well-drained soil that is rich with organic matter. I'm a big fan of in-ground beds because that's how I started gardening, but I'll tell you the truth. I've grown the best carrots of my life every year in raised beds. And that's because in raised beds, I am in control of the soil quality from day one. I know exactly what I put into the soil, and I know the texture of the soil as well. Now, that's not to say that you can't grow carrots in in-ground beds. You just need to make sure that you amend the soil prior to sowing your seeds. To amend the soil, you can work cocoa coir, compost, sand, or even peat moss into your beds and turn it over a few times. Look, I know that I tell you guys not to till the garden, and I know that I tell you guys that you want to disturb the soil as minimally as possible, but if you want to grow great carrots in-ground beds, hey, then that's one thing that you're going to have to do. So that brings us to the next point, and that is variety. You need to make sure you're planting the proper carrot variety for your gardening situation. If you're growing in raised beds, then you're able to pick from any of the 5 different varieties of carrots. But if you're growing in an in-ground bed, then you may want to stick to one of these two varieties. Now let's talk about the varieties. Carrots come in a variety of shapes and sizes and colors, but they are classified by the length and the size of the roots. So first off, we have imperators. Now, imperators are the primary commercially grown carrot. They're the ones that you're going to see most often when you go to the grocery store. They grow to be about 8 to 10 inches long, and when they grow, they come to a point at the end, like a tapered type shape. These grow great in loose soils. As a matter of fact, any of the longer variety of carrots, you need to make sure that you have loose, well-worked soil. Next, we have the Danvers. Now, Danvers are a conical shaped carrot that grows to be about 7 inches long. So, not quite as long as our imperators, but still a good size. If you want to grow this variety, we need to make sure that we are growing it in the proper soil. This variety will not perform well in compacted clay situations. Next, we have the Nance. Now, this is actually my favorite variety of carrot to grow. And it's not just my favorite variety. It's the number one variety of carrots grown by home gardeners. And that's because they are cylindrical with a blunt tip, grow to be about 6 to 7 inches long, and in my opinion have the best flavor of any of the carrot varieties out there. Now, the fourth variety is the Chantony. Now, these are a short to mid-length variety carrot. They're usually around 4 to 5 inches long. They have oversized tops, meaning they have very wide shoulders at the top, but then they come down to a blunt tip at the end. Now, this is a great variety to grow if you're growing in an in-ground bed situation or if you have compacted or clay soil. Now, the fifth variety goes by a few different names. You may hear people refer to it as miniature. You may hear people refer to it as oxheart. You may hear people refer to it as market carrots, or you may even hear people refer to it as Paris carrots. Now, these are a short, stocky carrot. They're only about 2 to 3 inches long. And if you are growing in an in-ground bed or you have compacted or clay soils, these are the ideal carrot varieties for you. So now that we've talked about the right variety, let's talk about fertilizing our carrots. One reason I love growing carrots is because they don't need any additional fertilizer once they start growing. The best way that I've found to fertilize carrots is to apply a slow-release organic granular fertilizer prior to sowing my carrot seeds in the garden. The organic fertilizer that I prefer is an all-purpose fertilizer, meaning the numbers will be relatively close to each other. 4-5-4, 3-2-4, anything in that range. Whatever you do, avoid using high nitrogen fertilizers with carrots. Why is that? Nitrogen is related to leaf growth. If we use a high nitrogen fertilizer with our carrots, we're going to end up with amazing carrot green tops. But we're not growing carrots for the greens on top. Even though they are edible, we're growing carrots for the roots. So avoid high nitrogen fertilizer unless you just want to grow amazing carrot tops. Now, just because you don't have an in-ground bed or a raised bed, that does not mean that you are not able to grow carrots. And that's because carrots can grow in containers. You just need to make sure you have the ideal size container for your variety. Here are some tips for growing carrots successfully in containers. 1. Make sure we have the right variety for the container size that we have. So if I'm looking to grow the Imperator, which is an 8 to 10 inch long carrot, I need to make sure that my container is around 12 inches deep. Step 2, invest in high quality soil. Remember earlier we talked about prepping our soil in our raised beds or in-ground beds? Well, with containers, we are in control of the soil the same way we are with raised beds. So you want to make sure you invest in the highest quality organic soil possible. 3, consistent watering. Once we sow those carrot seeds, we need to make sure we keep that soil moist until they germinate. 4, don't forget to thin your seedlings. Overcrowded carrot seeds lead to small roots. 5, hill your carrots. Once they start to grow and the shoulders form, we're going to want to move some of that soil around the carrot greens and sort of mound it up a little bit. And 6, even though I said carrots don't need extra fertilizer, That's if we're growing it in raised beds or in-ground beds. But if we're growing our carrots in containers, then you need to make sure you fertilize your carrots twice during your growing season. Once beforehand, working a slow-release organic fertilizer into the soil, and then second time would be after we thin our carrots. Now let's talk about how to actually plant carrot seeds. Like other root crops, you need to be sowing your carrot seeds directly into the garden. Now, when sowing your carrot seeds, you can either follow one of two methods. You can do the neat and tidy method where you plant your carrots in clean, neat rows, or you can do the scattered method where you just take some seeds and you do your best Salt Bae impression and you kind of sprinkle your seeds all over the garden. The choice is up to you. One way is not better than another way. It really depends on what you want your final garden to look like. Are you someone that needs to have everything in order, neat and tidy? Or do you mind if there are carrot seeds everywhere sporadically planted? A tip for growing carrots is to make sure you overseed your carrot bed. So what I like to say is to sow twice as many carrot seeds as you plan on eating. And I say overseed the carrot bed because not every one of the carrot seeds will germinate. So it's better to do some extra thinning of the carrots than to not have enough carrot seeds pop up. Now, after we sow the seeds, you have two options. You can leave the seeds uncovered, just take the seeds, sprinkle them on the soil and water them in, or you can cover them with a light covering of soil or compost. I prefer to cover the carrot seeds, and that's because birds love carrot seeds. So if you leave your carrot seeds uncovered, don't be surprised if you see birds feasting on these carrot seeds. Next, let's talk about properly watering the carrot seeds. From the moment you sow your carrot seeds, you need to make sure that you keep that soil moist until they germinate. If the soil is allowed to dry out, what ends up happening is a thin layer of what I refer to as crust forms on the top of your soil bed, and that will stop carrot seeds from germinating. This is one of the best tips that I can give you to ensure that you get your carrots to germinate. Go out every day and water your carrot seeds. Now, I'm not telling you to pour gallons and gallons of water on top of where you plant your carrot seeds, because what you could end up doing is flooding the seeds and moving them out of your rows. But grab a hose, like a hose link hose, change it to the rain setting, take a few steps back, and just lightly mist your carrot seeds. Now, once your carrots germinate, you can switch over to watering about once or twice a week, depending on the temperature outside. You want to make sure that you are watering deeply. We want the soil to be moist deep underneath the surface. So that way the roots will grow down towards the water and be able to absorb any extra water that is in the soil while they're growing. Now, one of the most vital tips for growing carrots is to make sure that you thin your carrots properly. Thinning reduces the chances of our carrots becoming overcrowded. Overcrowded carrots are misshapen carrots or small carrots, and that's not what we're looking for here. Now, when you go to thin your carrots, you want to make sure you're thinning your carrots to about 2-inch spacing. That way we can ensure that they grow into the ideal size. When thinning the carrots, you have two options. One, thin them as soon as they germinate, which is what I prefer to do, or wait until some small mini carrot roots have formed and then thin your carrots. Either way, you're able to eat what you thin. Let's talk about pest and disease associated with carrots. But I've noticed that carrots are relatively pest-free. The bigger issue that I have with carrots is not actually the pest or disease, but it's actually weeds. You want to make sure that your seed bed is completely weed-free. If you have weeds growing, they will compete with the carrots for the nutrients, and more than likely, the weeds will win. Occasionally, I've had an issue with powdery mildew, but that usually comes from carrots being overcrowded. Every now and then, you may have an aphid issue, but aphids are relatively easy to take care of with a mix of Castile soap and water. If you notice that your carrot greens are being eaten at the base where they attach to the carrots, then that's usually cutworms. And the easiest way to deal with cutworms is to spray BT spray on your carrot greens. But if you spray the BT spray on your carrot greens, I wouldn't recommend eating those carrot greens. Even though BT is organic, you need to make sure that you have enough days in between the time that you spray the spray on the carrot greens and the harvest. So if you only have 7 days in between when you sprayed the BT spray on the carrot greens, then I don't recommend eating those greens. Now let's talk about harvesting and storing the carrots. One of the best things about harvesting carrots is that you can harvest them at your preferred size. Most carrots take between 2 to 4 months to reach maturity, but you can harvest them younger for what people refer to as baby carrots, or you can wait until they reach their full length at maturity. Either way, the choice is up to you. So how do you know when you can harvest your carrot? Depending on the variety, what ends up happening is the shoulders of the carrot usually work their way up to the top of the soil. You can brush a little bit of the soil off the top of the carrot and then see if it has reached your desired size. And then you're gonna grab the carrot greens with one hand and simply yank it out of the ground. If you're growing carrots in compacted soil, you may not be able to just grab the greens and pull them out of the ground. So I recommend using a digging fork along the base of the greens to help you remove the carrots from the soil. Once you harvest the carrots, you're going to want to remove the green tops and then clean the carrot roots. Don't throw away your carrot tops. They're edible as well. You can cut them up and put them into a salad or compost them. Or if you have chickens, feed them to your chickens. They will love you for it. Here's a trick to help lengthen the amount of time that you can store your carrots. After washing your carrots, you want to put them into a Ziploc plastic bag with a little bit of water at the bottom of the bag. Then store them in the crisper drawer or the cool drawer in your refrigerator. This way, the carrots will last around 3 to 4 months in the refrigerator. All in all, growing carrots is just the same as any other root crops. Follow these tips from this carrot grow guide, and I guarantee you you'll have your best carrot harvest yet. That's it for this episode of Just Grow It, the podcast. You know what to do now. Head outside, get your hands in the dirt, put some good music in your headphones, and just grow it. Before I let you go, I need you to do more than one thing. First, I need you to like, comment, subscribe to the podcast. Second, I need you to tell a friend or two about the show if you enjoyed it. And if you have anybody you think I need to talk to, I should interview, send the name over, put it in the comments, or send me an email, igrow@BigCityGardener. And check me out, man, on Instagram and on all social media platforms, Big City Gardener. We out. Oh, almost forgot. Just grow it.